did a wonderful program for the fall meeting a couple years ago in Cambridge, Ohio. And there's just so much information about the Cambridge cuttings and the cutting process. And I'm sure Mike's going to share some of that with us tonight. And I'm sure we're going to be uh, very amazed at the pieces that Mike shares with us. And I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else has to share as well tonight. So thank you, Julie. And if Mike's ready, let's take it away.
Mike, you'll have to unmute because I muted you.
Thank you, David. When David asked me if I would do this program, I was more than happy to help him with his leadership from the program to contribute. This is probably the third time we've presented a program on cuttings. Jack and I did one up in Michigan. Then we did the NCC fall meeting one time. And then David asked me to do this tonight. And usually it takes us an hour, but he said 20 minutes. So I noticed my program keeps shrinking. So I'm going to, let's see if I can share. Can I share? Okay. I'm sending a request to share.
You're good to share.
I'm good to share. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay. I use multiple screens, so things are sometimes hard. Can everybody see my sheet? Okay.
Yes.
So this is rock crystal and engraved glass of the Cambridge Glass Company. You'll see down there it says 20-minute presentation as David requested, but I did write probably. I can't guarantee you, David. So let's go into it here. Presentation is going to be 3 parts. First, what is cut glass? That's going to be an easy one for us. Then cut glass in the Cambridge Glass Company. And then I want to focus a little bit on collecting Cambridge cuttings. So what is cut glass? Cut glass is glass that has been cut with some object that decorates it and uses a tool to engrave it. Not to be confused with the etching process, where etching is completely different. A cutting's executed using a cutting wheel. All cuttings are done by hand. Most makers polished glass using acid once the cutting process was complete. This is from an exhibit at the NCC Glass Museum. This would be a cutter sitting at a wheel. If you can imagine them turning out dozens of glasses in a day, there's no template. They did it all by hand. This is an example of acid polishing, where a gentleman, this is at the Cambridge Glass Factory, is dipping it into acid. I cheated. Okay, they're actually using acid to do an etching process. But it was the same kind of process with cuttings to polish it. They used a different kind of acid, whereas the etching process left it kind of a rough look, and the engraving process left it polished. This is an example bowl that of cut glass, and you'll see where it starts out down at the bottom. There's nothing there. You move over to the right, you can see a rough cut going in. Then you move to the top of the bowl, and you can see where they've roughed it in gray. And then over on the left, it's a polished, finished look. Here's the bowl after it's been completed. It started out just blank, and now it's polished out and done. Okay, so we're on cut glass in the Cambridge Glass Company. Everybody's joined again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Herschel Hancock was the guru of cutting at Cambridge, and he was there from 1919 to 1954. And kind of a strange business relationship. The cutting department was in the Cambridge glass plant, but it was actually owned by Herschel. So he would just get the blanks in the plant, cut them back to Cambridge, and out the door they went as Cambridge Glass. And then in 46, the company took over the whole operation from him. Herschel, he was responsible for some phenomenal number of cuttings, but only 200 or so are recognizable today. Here's a picture of Herschel, the father of our rock crystal engraving collections. Again, you see, he just stood there and he cut away on those things. There were, we'll say, 4 eras of cutting Cambridge glass: the 20s, the 30s, the late 30s and 40s, and then the 50s. In the 20s, you had non-polished cuttings, which appear gray on early transparent colors. David once said to a collector that was trying to collect these that it shouldn't take much space. Well, we'll see later it did. Here's the cutting department in 1920. If you can imagine such beautiful glass coming out of this factory, it's kind of amazing to me. Kind of a rough and tumble look. The yellow circle shows Herschel Hancock in 1920. Remember, he started in 1919, so he was a young man in this picture. Here's an example of a piece during this period on a colored blank where it was cut, but it's a gray cut. Those are multiple lines that are showing up on the piece. Here's a collection of 1920s non-polished cuttings in gray on the early transparent colors. And this is what I was kind of found ironic, that somebody said you won't need a big case. Well, this is only a snapshot of this whole collection that I saw. In the 30s, they started polishing the cuttings. It was done primarily on crystal blanks. There were some exceptions. As I mentioned before, Cambridge primarily polished with acid, and they used rock crystal as a marketing tool for their cuttings. Crystal originally referred solely to the color of glass, and then it kind of evolved over time to be adopted by the public to indicate high quality glass. So when somebody's talking about crystal, they'll say, well, is this crystal? Well, if it's clear, it's crystal, but they're probably referring to something that has a lot of lead content as fine glass. Now, Cambridge used the term rock crystal. So that's our segue from crystal to rock crystal. Um, in common usage, rock crystal started out being engravings on quartz a long time ago, and then it evolved over time to be any kind of handmade glassware that had been cut and polished. So it wasn't just Cambridge that came up with the term rock crystal, but Cambridge did use it as a marketing tool. And my sources on this, there's a blue book that Cambridge put out called The Art of Making Fine Glassware. If anybody ever sees that, it's kind of interesting to read, very generic, not just for Cambridge. Here's a sticker that Cambridge had specifically for rock crystal. You don't find it too often, but it is unique when you find a particular kind of work that Cambridge did with its own cutting, other than the familiar oval with the black and yellow. Here's an example of a 30s piece where they started cutting and polishing. This is a very highly polished piece, a nude. Here's another one. This is the 611 cutting. Incidentally, when the cutters were working on these, they didn't refer to the patterns as anything other than a number. So when they were passing it around or what they had to do for the day, it was by number. So this cutting in particular didn't have a name, it was just 611. Contrast that with a later cutting called Celestial. Very confusing because Cambridge did about 3 cuttings named Celestial. But you can see that it's highly polished. It's a later cutting. And then we get to the late 30s and 40s, which was the largest introduction of different and beautiful patterns. So the 30s and 40s were really when we see a lot of the great cuttings coming out. Um, and one of the things that they also came out with at this time was something called Deluxe Crystal, if you ever see that name. Again, it's a marketing name for some special items that they made. It only appears in the 1940 Rock Crystal catalog. There were some other company documents that talked about it, price lists and other things. But the thing that made it deluxe was that it contained 40 to 45% lead, which normally the glass that they were cutting was 20 to 28%. And the more lead you had, the softer the glass was, but it was also stronger. So they were able to do some deep cuttings, such as Windsor, and again Celestial, but not the Celestial you just saw. And this is the 30s and 40s. Okay, here's the cutting department in 1937. Contrast that with the last group. There's a lot of employees here, and this is the high water mark of the Cambridge cutting crew. And if you'll notice, where's Marla and Marilyn? There's your dad. Wave so everybody can see you. Where are you? I don't see him. Where's Marla and Marilyn here? There they are. Okay. And then over here, down here in the first row, that's Elaine Thompson's dad sitting right there. So put a little face on it. These guys were quite a crew. And over in the yellow, here's Herschel. He looks like he's aged a bit. Remember, the first time we saw him was 1920. Now we're up to 37. This is a cutting by Elaine's dad, Croesus, which was a fairly elaborate cutting for the time. He also cut Lucia. And I don't know if Marilyn or Marla know what their dad cut. Do you guys know what your dad cut? No? Okay. So we move on, and here's a piece of deluxe crystal. And this was the 40 some percent leaded crystal, and they were able to do these deep cuttings in it. This piece weighs probably twice as much as a normal Cambridge cutting. Another piece of deluxe crystal. This one is also called Celestial, and you can see the moon and the stars in it, and they cut this. And then here's a special kind of piece they did. They etched it Lorna, and it was a different, it was the same basic etch, but they had a different plate for it. So they would etch the piece, and then they gave it to a cutter, and he cut a lot of this stuff out. So what you end up here is an etched end cut piece. These are pretty rare, but I thought I'd at least mention it. The other pieces that we see with this are in Wildflower. In the 50s, the patterns became simpler for cost and consumer demand, and cuttings on colored blanks was reintroduced. So that whole period from the 30s to the 40s and late 40s, I've only seen maybe a half dozen pieces of colored blanks that are cut and polished. On some of the king pieces, there's a Carmen Bowl cut Adonis floating around there, but it's pretty rare. But in the 50s, we started going back and had some cutting pieces. Most was still crystal in the 50s. Here's a very common cutting. You can see how from the 50s, so you can see how simple it is. This is rondo, which you see a lot of. One thing to take note of is see how the cutting goes all the way to the edge. When we get to uh, somebody else cut this, but they stopped the cutting down in here. And Jack and I discovered this going through my collection one day, and we were trying to identify all the rondo cuttings and say, wow, what is this blank? What is this blank? Well, we found out later on that we did not find something rare and unique. We found something that somebody else cut. Here's a blue piece that was cut, again, fairly rare on the simplicity stem from the later years in the 50s. And then a line of vases called the bowling pins. And this one happens, this is on a smoke vase with, you can see these kind of gyros. This is called wedding rings. Again, the simplicity of it. I actually am fond of later simple cuttings. Here's one called Starlight on a yellow Mandarin Gold 8-inch vase where they've cut that. Again, I'm showing you some colored pieces, but these are not very common, but they just so you know they're out there, and if you see them, grab them. Okay, third part of our program tonight is going to be collecting Cambridge cuttings. And I'm going to break this into 3 parts: popular patterns, commonly found stems, and then cost for collectors. These are the popular patterns, and they're broken into 2 sections. The top section are the patterns that are most collected by Cambridge collectors, and then the bottom are general line collectors. These are people that don't exclusively collect Cambridge, but they happen to like some of the Cambridge cuttings. Up for the Cambridge collectors: Adonis, Achilles, Candlelight, King Edward, and Harvest. Those are the most popular patterns. And down below for the general line are Laurel Wreath, Lynbrook, and Bexley. And I'll show you some of these. Sorry, this is a blurry picture. That's all I could finagle. Here's Adonis on a cut 3500 stem. You can see how elaborate this cutting was. And this is probably, I would say, Cambridge's king cutting for the general population was Adonis. Second place is Achilles. You can always tell by this the shield that gives it away. And then we have Candlelight. There's a lot of people that go for Candlelight, and I can understand why. It is a very beautiful cutting. Not to be contrasted with another Candlelight cutting. I call this the old Candlelight. This one's a little bit simpler, and it's got a gray Candlelight in there. This is not one of the most collected stems. I just threw it in there so you could contrast it. Next one is King Edward. This is, you see a lot of King Edward around. Harvest, you also see a lot of Harvest around. The sheaths of the wheat are actually grayed. So we think what they did with this is they cut the leaves, and then they went over and dipped it in acid and then brought it back, and then they cut the wheat sheaths. So this slide is the stem lines that you're going to find a lot of cuttings on. And these numbers down here, when little numbers next to it, when we did a program down for Cambridge, that's the number of each different stem that we took down there. So the 7966, the trumpet stem, we had 6 different 7966 stems that were cut. 3116, the knife, what we call the knife stem. That was we had 8 of those. The 3132 kind of a big old stem. We had 8 of those. This is wheat sheaf or harvest that we just saw. This is the most cut one that you're going to find. And there's 3 different bowls on this particular stem. It's a late stem. And we had 18 different cuttings on this stem that we took down with us. Pristine, which we all can recognize with the, I don't know what you call those things, discs. Thank you, Lisa. We had 7 of those. The Simplicity stem, which again was late, we had 8 of those. And 3139, we took 7 of those. So that's to give you an idea about the stems that you're going to find cuttings on. There's many, many more, but these are the ones that were the most common. Now, I've got to mention something called LaFlow. After the plant closed and the cutting department moved on, Herschel Hancock and his son-in-law, Eddie Griffith, they started their own cutting company down in Cambridge, and they called it LaFlow after their wives' names. This is and they did some cuttings that look like Cambridge because they had a lot of the characteristics of Cambridge. And this particular picture I found shows a lot of different makers. But here's there's a Cambridge piece on the left and right in the middle, and then there's a mayonnaise. So they did a lot of cutting on Cambridge blanks. But it can be confusing because you'll find a Cambridge blank, but the cutting looks like Cambridge, except there's something not quite right on it. And that's LaFlow did that. They made the difference just so they weren't duplicating Cambridge. And that Rondo 7966 trumpet stem we looked at earlier, where the cutting came all the way to the lip, on LaFlow's, it does not come all the way to the lip. So that's a differentiation. Here's what they're labeled down here. I got a picture of that. You'll find that on their pieces quite a bit. And if you wanted more information on LaFlow, this is in the Crystal Ball back in August of 2007. Somebody did an excellent article on it. Other contemporaries. This is 3011 stems with tiffin cuttings on them. So you can see that they're gray cuttings from what I recall. But just if you see a nude stem and it's got a gray cutting, it's probably tiffin. Okay, cost for collectors. Whoops, sorry. Previous. Commonly found stems, or you can find common stems from $5 to $15. So if you're looking to collect something that you don't want to invest a lot in, but you like the art of it, cuttings could be for you. But there's a caution, and I'll show you later here. A highly prized stem, something that's that's rare but highly cut, you get into the $20 to $45 range for a stem. And when you get to bowls, $35 to $50 on a bowl. And that's because bowls take up a lot of space. They're beautiful when they're cut, but they're not highly demanded just because a lot of people don't have space for them. I know my first exposure, I was walking through the Cambridge Glass Show many, many years ago, probably decades, and I saw a very common 3,400 square foot bowl with cuttings all over it, and I thought, what is this? And that was my first exposure, but I didn't buy it at the time. It's probably similarly priced. Vases and jugs, you start getting into some of the higher price things of $50 to $125. But if you look at the most common things, you're $5 to $125. And that we all know if you're collecting anything in Cambridge, you can easily get out of these ranges quickly. And the only thing in cuttings that really is expensive are the nude stems. And those generally go $350 for the water goblets. There are some comports that are a little cheaper because there's, as someone pointed out to me, that's not an uncommon thing to get a 3011 cut comport. And I had to agree because I've probably seen 4 or 5 of them, which is still not many. This is my collection in the basement. On the And I don't know. I told you got to watch out collecting these. This can happen. This happened to us. Um, I'm I generally don't collect a lot of one particular stem type. I try and limit myself to 4 waters, 4 cordials, and one everything in between. So between the left side and the right side, there's a lot of different cuttings in there. Caution. Here's my caution for you. Once you start collecting cuttings, it's hard to stop. The image at the right is what happened to Jack Thompson after I gave him some stems. Um, each piece in his case is a unique Cambridge cutting. So he has no dupes in here, and he's just collecting one of each cutting. So I thought that was a good example of the variety that Cambridge produced. And every once in a while you get lucky. This is an Adonis Palace vase in my collection. This is the most highly cut piece that I own or have seen in Cambridge. For references, there are 2 books out there. Rock Crystal Engravings, a kind of a yellowish book. This is not a Cambridge catalog, but it has great examples of all the different ones. And on the right, this green one is actually a company catalog from May of 1940. It is a reproduction of the actual Cambridge catalog. That's the end. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. That was wonderful.
How did I do on time? I want to know. David, how did I do?
You did great, Mike. It's 8:30.
Oh,
Yeah,
We had
you
some-
did well.
we had
So
All
are
right.
there any questions for Mike?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna stop your sharing, Mike. Well, no,
Okay.
I won't stop it yet because someone may have a question we may need to go back to. So you mentioned that cutters would only cut one pattern or 2 patterns.
No, they could cut anything.
So they could cut anything.
Yeah, I think Elaine's dad was actually he had 2 main cuttings that he did, and he would also fill in when somebody needed a replacement piece for their collection that they had, or at the time it wasn't a collection, it was a serving pattern. Say they had 8 water goblets and one broke. And then they would ask Elaine's dad if he would just cut one of those or 2 of those, whatever it took to fill in.
You are correct, Mike.
Thank you, Elaine.
So my other question is just like, so from a craft standpoint, okay, so like my grandmother embroidered in the 30s, and she always had a little bit of pattern that she could go for. So when they started the cutting, do we know, like, did they like mark the middle of it? Did they use like a grease pencil to kind of put some markings on the piece so that they kind of had a way to start or begin the pattern, or they just said, this looks like a good place to start and this is where I'm starting?
I have heard 2 versions. One is that they just went and cut. The other one is that they took a marker and went around and put a mark on 4 sides of it, and then just started cutting away. But it was in no
I
way
can chime in a little bit on that, Mike.
Go, Jack.
There was people in the cutting department, they called the chalk girls. And they were people that would go along because certain patterns that were more complex, they would go along and maybe say if they had 3 flowers on them, they would put a little line around them and put a little X where the flowers go, and that would be it. Everything else was freehand. Mike is correct. A lot of times They would have, if it was a pattern they weren't cutting regularly, they had a little picture of it. They would hang up top of them on a little, with a little clothespin, and they would just do it freehand just by looking at that thing. So it could be either way.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I've got a question. Generally, how long did it take to do a cutting?
The only thing that I'm aware of is when Elaine's dad, well, Elaine, why don't you tell the group what your dad told you about?
I think Jack would do a better job there.
All right, Jack, you're up again.
Okay, well, and this is just one of Elaine's dad's primary cuttings was Lucia. Not quite as complex as Croesus or some of the other ones, but still it had some things to it, some design things to it. I asked him how long, or how many he could do, or how long it would take him to do a goblet. And he said he could do 8 of them in an hour. And I'm going, no, wait a minute. I said, excuse me. He says, no, he would have a stack of trays of the crystal blanks, the crystal goblets in this case, with a dozen in each tray. And of course, thinking about it, you have to, your stone that's you're cutting with, you have different size stones to do the different size cuttings. If it's a real fine cutting, you have a really small stone. If it's a really wide, like a leaf cutting or whatever, you have a little wider one. So you may have to change the stone out 2 or 3 times on one piece. So to be able to do that and still do 8 of those an hour, now that's really unusual. Like on some of the more complex cuttings, maybe you get 1 or 2 done in an hour, and that's on a stem. And it's much longer, of course, if you're doing more complex bowls and vases. It may take you a big, wide variable depending on what the piece was and what the cutting was. So.
All right, thank you for that, Jack. I'll tell you what, Mike, I'll have you stop sharing now. Thank
I'm
you.
out.
Thank you. And we'll go and see some pieces. Let's start with Christine, and we'll put Greg Voss on deck, please. And thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation, Mike. I hope in the future I can see the 40-minute or hour presentation. So maybe we'll do that for a educational program at convention or something. Yes,
Julie,
Christine.
can I ask Jack a question?
You sure may.
Were the workers paid by the piece, or were they hourly workers or salaried workers?
Most of the workers in the cutting department were hourly.
So they had a set salary per hour. Okay.
That's correct. Like when Elaine's dad started out in 1936, he was paid 26 cents an hour. Well, that was during.
I lost you.
Yeah, we lost you, Jack.
Oh.
You froze.
Yeah, you froze.
Huh, I don't know why. That's weird.
You were at 26 cents an hour.
Yeah, so and then he got a raise to 29 cents an hour after a few months. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. And then then right before the war, I think he was up to 40 cents an hour. So when he came back from the war, it was 49, 50 cents, 60, 70 cents an hour, which wasn't much money because those guys, it was seasonal work. So it wasn't steady full time. And that's why then he become electrician because he could pay a lot more money. And I think he was making $1.25 an hour in 1948 as an electrician. So that gives you kind of a little idea of what was going on there.
It seems like in the 1960s, minimum wage was like 75 cents an hour when I started working. So if in the early 50s they were making 40 to 50 cents an hour, that was probably pretty decent for the time, but if it was seasonal, it didn't stretch out enough.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
All right. Well, we will now move on. So as I said, we'll put Christine first, and then we'll put Greg Voss on deck, please.
All right. Well, the first one, I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna have to take the blur off, aren't I? You guys are not
Yes, you
gonna
are.
be able to see. I'm so sorry. I should have realized that. Oh shoot. Oh,
We have to be able to look in your cases, Chris.
I know. Oh no. Where is my
Go to video at the bottom left-hand side, and you should be able to take blur my background
Oh,
off.
thank you. Perfect.
There you go.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes, much.
So I thought I'd get some paper so that you could see this. It's still not as good as I would like it to be. Can you guys see the cutting?
No,
Not very well. No.
no.
Shoot. I
Chris,
was trying
It's
different colors.
just take the white background away, Chris.
Yeah, that's
Is that
better.
better? Is the blue better?
Eh,
Take it away again.
Take it away.
I think
That's
it's easier
better.
to see without the.
Okay, I was trying to make it better. Well, this is the Lucia. I found this quite by accident. It's like way down in the bottom of a shelf. It is absolutely beautiful. Nice, pretty divided dish, a real simple dish, but the cutting on it is just absolutely beautiful. So thank you, Jackie and Elaine, for showing me that cutting, because then I recognized it when I saw it. So thank you. Of course, so you can see it. This is huge. Of course, this is the cornucopia with the King Edward on it. Does have a silver base that, yes, needs polished. I have a bowling pin. So in the light green, I don't know if this is celestial or starlight. Is it have to do with the age of it then, or what the piece is? How do you tell?
They're different, Chris.
Are they different? Can you see this one? So it has the starburst, the sunburst on the bottom, and has the little stars going all the way
I
up.
believe that is starlight, I think.
That is starlight. Okay. Thank you. And then I have some conundrums. So I have a set, the nesting, I call them the nesting ashtrays. So you can see the set. And here is a single one. There is a cutting on here. I cannot find what the cutting is on it, but there is a cutting on this. Can you guys see that okay? Always be able to see what it is. But it does have a cutting on it. All four of them do. It's really pretty. And then the last one is this little shot glass. Kind of looks to me like Rondo. It does go all the way to the edge. But it's almost like little lines rather than, I feel like Rondo is usually just one smooth one where this is little lines. Can you guys
Chris,
see
it's
that?
called swirl.
Oh, really? Is it actually Cambridge?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
There's
I
there's
was not
about there's 3 different swirls they did.
really. Well, thank you. Thank you for telling me that because I was looking at this, trying to figure out what it was. So that helps a lot. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine. Appreciate that very much. And I think you'll have to send maybe a picture over to Jack or Mike for your other. It's very hard to see on the ashtrays. So maybe you can send them a photo in the future. So you're still on mute. You're on mute, Christine. You're still on mute.
I've lost my picture completely.
I will send a picture over.
Okay. Alrighty. So next, before we move on, Kathleen did send a note in the chat box and wanted to know if it was seasonal work, what was the busy season? Mike or
That it would be summer before Christmas and Thanksgiving and those days.
Then also the bridal season too.
Yeah, bridal season. So we don't know.
okay.
Jack, you gonna guess?
Did we lose Jack?
Yeah, he's not real interested in cutting, so
So, Mike, do you think when large orders came in, that was what you were referring to as seasonal, or was it truly something like fall, spring, summer, winter?
David, I just don't know. The one thing I do know, and I didn't mention it, is where did they sell this stuff? It was in big department stores and jewelry stores.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting place where it shows up is out in Iowa. Um, I've talked to Lynn Welker about it, and he said that they made a lot of shipments of cuttings to Iowa. And one piece, I certainly didn't bring it tonight, but I actually have a tally ho, punch bowl, and underplate and mugs that are all cut, one set, and that came out of Kansas. So to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, where they ship this stuff is kind of a mystery, other than like most other Cambridge pieces went to big population centers. So I couldn't tell you how that correlates to the season.
Interesting. Well, it could be also a regional type style too, just like certain pieces were more regional, that based on table settings of the time or the era. So that could be it as well. But that's a very interesting question we might have to delve into in the future. So thank you, Christine, and thank you for your comments. Much appreciated. Next, we'll move over to Greg Voss. Are you available, Greg? And we'll put Freeman on deck, please. Do we have Greg? Let me look here.
Okay, I found the unmute button.
Excellent.
I have a new phone, so it's
Aha.
yeah. So and continuing the conundrum theme, which I think is something we've all faced before. I have two conundrum ice buckets. This is I think, a very beautiful cutting. I don't think that it's known what it is, but it's on a very nice tally-ho blank. And I don't think it's of the Windsor quality, but it certainly has some beautiful cutting marks on it. And another one is a decagon model, and I've seen this cutting before, I think, on different items.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
It looks like it's got maybe a gray part and then a polished part. Not quite sure. And I came into a set of cigarette holders a while back, and some gentleman somewhere had collected 422 cigarette holders from various sources. Some of them, I think, maybe were European. Some of them were Fostoria, and there was a bunch of Cambridge in their cuttings and engravings. And so I just wanted to share a couple of them. This is the Adonis. I believe this is Adonis. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. It's all, one of the interesting things is with cuttings, sometimes with the piece, they have to move part of the cutting around to a different side, and you're looking for it to be like right next to the main medallion part, and they have to, wrap it around the other side or something to make it fit. It's kind of fun. And manner cutting, very simple cutting, but gosh, I think it is very pretty. It's very simple. These are all on the 1066 stem. And this is, oh yeah, here's another conundrum. A pretty cutting. I don't know who did it. Oh, it's got a little something on the side there. And then finally, I came across this very recently. It's the small keyhole vase, the shorter one, and it's got a cutting on it. And someone indicated they hadn't seen this particular item cut before. So it's number 615, I think is the number. And it's got engraving on the bottom and on the body, and at the top, it's got quite a bit of detail work up there.
That was me drooling over that, Greg.
That's all. Thank you. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you as well, and thank you for sharing. So it's not often we get to make Mike drool, but that obviously is a piece he's excited about. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So next we have Freeman, and we'll put Sue Cameron on deck, please.
Well, let's see if it's going to focus okay. Mount Vernon is my primary collection. So we have a Mount Vernon bowl with a cutting around the edge. So that's a really neat piece. Then the 1084 service tray with cutting. And here I did put the white paper underneath of it. The inserts are also cut, which is kind of interesting. And I do have all 5 inserts to go with that. It was mentioned earlier, Lucia. I'll bring this over. It's always nice to find the label, the rock crystal engraved label on a Lucia plate, as well as on a Glendale stem, where even the stem has all these little notches on it, as well as the cutting Glendale. And then back here is the 1305 vase with engraving 621. And then what Jeannie is really proud of is a service for 8 3,500 plates. The cutting is similar to, I think it was the 611 cutting, but to have dinner plates that are cut.
Beautiful.
So the plates are cut, salad plates, bread and butter plates, the soup bowl, cup and saucer, and then the 3025 stemware. And again, some people really like this particular stem with the square foot. And so, like I said, here with the cutting on it. So to have a table set with everything engraved, it's really neat. So that's enough for us to share here. Next.
Beautiful pieces, Freeman, beautiful pieces. And just as a curiosity, on the relish tray there, are all the little inserts, the 5 inserts, all etched the same with the same design, or are they etched different?
I only put 2 out. I didn't want to clutter the table, but the 2 are the same.
Okay.
But like I said, the base, it's really cut all the way around the edge. And then the inside, it's a beautiful cutting.
Yes, beautiful pieces. Thank you so very much for sharing and wonderful table setting there. It's nice to see all the pieces of the table setting together and how when you had them stacked, how wonderful they were. So thank you so much for that. Next, we'll go on to Sue Cameron and we'll put Gwinnell on deck, please.
Well, after Greg showing his cigarette holders, I'm a little loath to show this, but I've had this for many years, and both the foot and the body of the cigarette is shown, and it's 1066. When I first got this, I sent a note off to Mark Nye, asked him, "Do you know what this is?" And he said, "Well, it's unidentified, but probably close to 655." So Jack and Mike may be getting a picture from me too. Anyway, that's the only thing I have. So,
well, thank you, Sue, and it's always wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Julie.
Yes, sir.
I want to throw a comment in for these pieces that aren't identified. I don't know that we'll ever know. Jack's percentage might be higher than mine, but I would say out of 100 pieces, I can only identify 70. In the early years, I used to name cuttings Mike 1, Mike 2, Mike 3, because I just never knew.
Okay.
I have Tom's white Zoom screen showing.
Yes, and I'm trying to get
I'm
that
sorry.
on. Yeah.
It's actually Jane. My husband set this up.
Okay, so there's a little green arrow down at the bottom that says share.
Okay, 1 minute, please. I'm so bad with this. In the right-hand corner, I don't see that. It says type here to search. I don't know. I don't even know what that word means.
Okay, I took care of it.
You fixed it. Thank you.
I took care of it. No worries.
Thank you very much. I have one question, if I may ask. I have an extraordinary vase that's probably 12 inches tall that is etched so elegantly with birds and just foliage, and it's one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen, but I have no idea who made it. There is no marking on it, which is typical of the time. So I'm always looking to see if I've never seen one again, but it's just a beautiful piece. I can't imagine doing that kind of artwork.
Yes, these cuttings are quite beautiful. So probably again, cuttings is not the best people to ask are Mike and Jack, obviously, so that's why they're here. But yeah, maybe send them a photograph, possibly. I don't know.
I have to go to Staples and have them send photos because I don't know how to do it with my phone.
Jane,
But-
are you able to get to the vase in your home?
Oh, yes. Would you like to see it?
Well, yeah, you could go and look for it. We could move on to somebody else. And then when you've got the
Okay.
vase, we'll come back to you.
Very good. Thank you.
Sounds like a plan.
It sounds
All
like
right.
a plan.
Yep. Thank you.
Julie, I would like to mention, I appreciate the attribution, but Jack is good. Jack is also good. Tarzan Deal is good. Freeman Moore is good. Those are, we kind of collectively, Larry Everett is good. We kind of collectively try and identify and talk about cuttings. So any one of those guys can help.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can also send an email with a picture to several people at the same time.
Right. Right. Okay. So next we'll move on to Gwinnell and then we will go to Les.
Good evening, and Mike, that was a great program. And
Thank you.
continuing, I have another unknown. Got the cream and sugar on the 1076 decagon. And even the handles are marked, kind of like the Sims were. And you know I like cream and sugar, so I'm going to continue with that. Get that down. Got the Maryland with a label, Cambridge label, that is.
Is it Maryland? Yeah.
And Maryland is the Delta. And I'm looking for another part, kind of continue from Sunday's program for the cut candlelight. Freeman knows I'm looking for it.
Gwinnell, I don't think you're going to find a mate, so you might as well send that to me.
I think Freeman's looking for the other part, which is the one I've got, and I'm looking for the one he's got. Neither one of us are willing to give up yet.
She has what I want, and I have what she wants.
Yep, exactly. And then finally, I have to stay with Caprice, and then it's kind of a wheat pattern, and it is the gray cutting, and it is on Moonlight Blue. So those are only 5.
Pretty. Well, thank you, Gwinnell. Appreciate that. And we'll all collectively look for your candlelight.
Yeah, even if we find a pair, we can split it between Freeman and I.
That's right. That's right. We can make you both happy at one time.
That's right.
All right. Next, we'll go to Les, and we'll put the checks on deck. I think you have glass, right, Mary? I think so. All right. So next, Les, and then the checks on deck, please.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with one of the 3066 or 3011 nude stems with the 611 cutting on it. I think it's probably showing up here. Okay. So this is the banquet goblet. And of course, they're massive as far as height. So an estimate was given by Mike of 300 to 350 for the nude stems. Well, that would certainly apply to the claret, which is probably what surfaces most often, or the banquet, excuse me, the table goblet. But I collect only the decorated nudes, and they did this cutting on all the drinking vessels. So, and I only have 4 of them. So for nude collectors, this cutting, and it's the only cutting that Cambridge did on the nudes, the prices could probably go pretty high. Another one that I have
Les,
is
before you get off of that, that's the only one of those I've ever seen.
Me too.
So yeah, so you're off my chart.
Yeah. So I've got another one, and this is a gray cutting. It's on the 3116 stem, and they collectors sometimes call it the knife rest stem for obvious reasons, because it resembles a knife rest. This particular stem, as far as I know, the only etching on it is the wildflower etched cut combination when they did both the bowl and the foot. I had one once and I sold it. I always want to have nice stuff in my booth at the show, and I wish I hadn't sold that now. But there's quite a few cuttings on this stem. I think I'm correct, guys, in saying that this 3116 was heavily used, especially Lucia was very common. And then again, this stem was in service or was made by Cambridge for 17 years. Plus, as you mentioned, Mike, they had that replacement service during the reopened period. And they were making this stem and cutting it Lucia and perhaps others during that time, during the reopen period.
Now, that says Cambridge glass, correct?
Oh,
Les?
yeah, that's the rest of the story. I'm sorry. Thank you. So now this stem, it's got a label on it, and it would, fit from the probably the early 1950s. So the cutting is Cambridge Glass Company. Now, the story I was told when I bought this was that there was only 2 of them in the showroom at the factory. Okay, that's the story. So we know about these stories, but it is kind of cool with that gray cutting of the Cambridge Glass Company on it. Then I do have another piece that's an ashtray that's got essentially the same cutting, gray cutting. It's Cambridge, Ohio, and the cutting is exactly the same. I don't know where to put it here for
It's
clarity.
actually better if you tilt it just a shade. And if you tilt it back, we can see the cutting a little bit better.
Is that better?
Yeah, maybe put it there. That's perfect right there.
And it's a perfect match for the gray cutting that's on the tumbler. So perhaps it was from the factory. Who knows? It could have been post-factory as well. Then I've got three pieces. Some of you know that I also collect Heisey. Well, what I collect in Heisey is the cuttings, because I think Heisey did splendid cuttings. So this is the new era pattern, the stemware. I don't think anything gets much more deco. It's rectangular bottom, rectangular stem with vertical parts. And then this cutting, I don't know if it's showing, but it's Venus. And the cutting is just intricate and gorgeous and so many circles in a lot of their cuttings. Cambridge tended to do more flowing lines and floral. And this Venus cutting on New Era, I don't think there's anything that's much more deco than it. It's very hard to find. It's kind of nice to collect because it's hard to find, so you don't spend a lot because you very seldom add a piece to your collection. Here's an example of the same thing in a cordial, just a real, cute little piece as far as the cordial. They made cocktail shakers. I've got dinner plates, that type of thing. It was a complete line, New Era, cut Venus. The other one that's really hard to find, I've been only able to add 3 pieces to my collection, and I'm always looking for it, the Heisey auctions and shows. This is called Sea Glade, and it's got little fish on it. I don't know if those little fish are showing here.
There, as you tilt it, we can see them.
And this is just an incredibly difficult, but again, it's the intricacy and to cut those little fish on there. It's called Sea Glade is the name of the cutting, Heisey. So it's nice to have a little bit non-Cambridge, I think, on occasion too. So thank you.
All right. Well,
Thank you,
and
Julie.
yes, and thank you for showing us the other examples. Those are splendid. It's always nice to see what other manufacturers did as well and what was popular or unique in their cuttings as well as what we have in Cambridge. So thank you, Les.
You're welcome.
Next, we will go to the checks and then we will go to David.
Okay, we don't have too much cut, but yeah, I was curious about if so many of the things were cataloged, and we don't have I don't think we have the rock crystal engravings book, so it's something definitely want to order. But so this is when we buy stemware, we do like to usually get sets. Not as if we would ever let people drink. But this is so this one is Lucia, and it's the 3116 10 ounce footed tumbler. And I think these were local. We found them on eBay, but they turned out to be a local seller.
Mary, that'd be a nice tea, wouldn't it?
I would think so.
No, I thought iced teas might have even been taller, but maybe it is. I didn't actually measure it in ounces to see what it actually holds. And then this, we got the little Achilles. Trying to get it to show, but the 3121 Cafe Parfait. And I just love those, the little scrolls on the stem. And I never knew until seeing Freeman's, I never knew there were stems on that square base. So I've never seen them before. So that was really neat. We had a pair of the keyhole candlesticks, and I don't know. I said, don't know what the cutting is on these, but it's like a half daisy kind of, and then there are some fine lines cut underneath.
It's unusual.
Turn it the other way, Mary, so we can see the bottom of the.
This way? Can you see it that way?
There you go, right there.
My guess is Cordelia.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll have to look and see if I can order the book. And then the last piece was the a bull, and like I said, they do take up a lot of space. I think this was one of those things that it was like a bargain, and it was cutting, and it was Cambridge, so they had to come home with us.
But the cutting is so elaborate. It is phenomenal cutting.
I just think it would be so nice with to serve fruit in it.
It's got cut leaves. All the panels have the same cutting on the bottom.
Yeah, the kind of like the wheat in the middle there. Yeah. So that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Always good to see you both. And thank you for sharing what you have this evening. So we'll have to see if we can't find you a book. I'm sure if you call over to the museum, they probably have one left.
There was one question I had was I know you could you could order them through the Crystal Ball. I was curious if you could do that through the website. I didn't see a place to order it, but
that would be a question for Doug. Doug, I know you're on here.
Not currently. You can't order the publications off the website.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. Next, we're going to go to David.
Thank you, Julie. I have a couple pieces tonight. I was just looking on my dining room table last night, and I knew I had purchased this goblet from a knowledgeable collector. So I felt strongly that it would be a Cambridge cutting, and I was successful because some of those early cuttings, pre-1920, the images in the cutting catalog are a little bit difficult to see. They're just not the most, they're typically a photograph of a photograph of a photograph, and they're a little bit blurry and it's hard to see the detail. But fortunately, there was a nice picture of this one, and this is the 4077. They used two different kind of cutting wheels on this. They used the grooved wheel, like they would cut the swirl pattern, as well as a smooth wheel to do the leaves. So I thought this was probably Cambridge, and it turned out it was Cambridge. You don't see the super early cuttings too often. I don't know if I'm going in any particular order here. So I always have to resurrect this for my friend Greg Bass. Yes, Greg, I have not sold this to Jonathan Furman yet. It is a cut candlelight ice bucket. I was heading to an antique show in Springfield, Ohio, and I said, oh, I have time to go into the mall and just run through the cases. And wouldn't you know, just sitting in one of the cases right there in Springfield was this ice bucket. And I couldn't really see the cutting because it was in the bottom and the back, and I just couldn't believe it when I got down and looked at it more carefully. It's the only cut candlelight ice bucket I've ever seen.
Well,
I don't collect cuttings, but I like cuttings, and Cambridge did several nice ones. Broadmoor is one of my favorite. Cindy Arndt has a complete collection of Broadmoor, but this is a pristine vase with the sham foot. It's got the Broadmoor cutting on it. Mike, I'm not sure if this is part of the high lead crystal pattern or not. It does have some features of those cuttings, but I'm not sure if Broadmoor fit that, because they made a full line of Broadmoor. But it's certainly neat how they frosted the pattern, then cut the floral, and then the cross hatch around the outside. So, and a nice, pretty polished star cut on the bottom. quite nice. And I do like Broadmoor. That's a beautiful piece. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, or at least you pick up the phone at the right time. This is also the Broadmoor pattern, but what Cambridge did, because of the oval medallions, every once in a while they would monogram these. And this is the one that came from a former owner of the Cambridge Glass Company. His name was Sidney Albert. His wife's name was Estelle. I don't know if this was reopen period. I'm thinking 1955, 1956, possibly. Unfortunately, Mr. Albert lost everything and had to sell the Cambridge Glass Company. I believe that's the story. But it is the Broadmoor cutting, but they just put Sidney's name right in here. Unfortunately, they misspelled it, if you can believe it. They didn't. They spelled it Sidney, and it should be Syd. So clearly, the workers did not know their boss very well. And I don't know if we've seen this tonight. This is a Tally-Ho cordial with the, 100 cutting on it. Is that what it's called? This one happens to be flashed, kind of a purplish blue. And Mike Strebler and I just happened to go to a glass show one time, and Ed Sawicki said, "Any interested in this group of 8 cordials?" And Mike and I just about fell over one another trying to get to them. So Mike got a few and I got a few. It's really cool. And this is a very, I wouldn't say common, but it is one of the more likely seen cuttings put on the Tally-Ho stem line. And my last piece, I think Christine may have asked about this. Sent my mother to an auction one time, and I said, "Mom, you've got to get this decanter for me." This is the 1529. The vase is 1528. So this is the 1529 decanter. It's got the starlight cutting, I believe, is what we agreed to. So during the reopen period, Cambridge did do a little playing around with cuttings on color. So we saw a few of those in Mike's presentation tonight. So that's my presentation, Julie.
Well, thank you so much, David, and beautiful pieces. I kind of feel bad for Sydney, though. They couldn't even get his name right. So,
Pretty
yeah,
bad, yeah.
yeah, either that or they didn't like Sydney very well and decided to misspell his name.
Well, he was not a glass person. He was a company owner, and he owned many companies in the Akron, Cleveland, Canton area. So it was just an investment for him, and he didn't have much appreciation, I don't believe, for the glass.
Or rapport with his workers. So anyway, beautiful pieces. Thank you so much. Okay, next we're going to go to Jack. And was there anybody after Jack that has pieces to show? You can just put it in the chat for me.
I do, Julie.
Okay, Elaine. I thought you and Jack were together, but we'll do.
No.
Okay. All right.
And Julie, don't forget, we want to go back to Jane to look at her vase.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I thought we'll save Jane for last.
Okay. Should I begin then?
Yes, you can go and then we'll put Jack on deck.
Okay. I have a 14-inch platter. I don't think this is a Cambridge blank, but I got it from my parents and they said it was LaFleur. And it's LaFleur, I think it's bittersweet. I don't know. Can you hold that black behind it?
Let's see if you can.
Is that? I don't know if that shows better or not.
It's about the same, but you can see it a little bit. I think if you tilt it, it's always better when you tilt them a little bit. Yeah, then we can see the pattern a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
There.
Yes, very good there.
Yeah. Okay. And then let me get rid of that. I have branched out and I have a pair of pear point candlesticks. Okay. And this is the Coleus butterfly web. And I don't know how they cut this, because they would be looking at it and then cutting down here. And it just doesn't show to get the butterfly. I think I've got the butterfly here.
Yes, there you go. As long as
Okay.
it's tilted, we can see there a
Okay,
little
there's
bit.
a butterfly and a cobweb.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Just
Beautiful.
very, I love those. And then Mike had talked about the wildflower. This is etched wildflower. It's different than the the more commonly seen. And then they cut it also.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's showing.
There it is.
Okay. And then my last piece is a piece we got from my parents' collection. And it's a tumbler and it says Edith on it. That was my mother's name. And we got it from their house in 2004 when they downsized. And I went through my mother's diaries, and my father gave this to her on November 10th, 1939. He cut it and then gave it to her. So, special piece.
Absolutely. Well,
And
wonderful
that's
pieces.
and that's it. So
Well,
now it can be Jack.
yes. Well,
Here.
thank you, Elaine. Appreciate that very much. And obviously a very sentimental piece that is
Yes.
just a dream. So Jack, we'll go to you next. And then before we get to Jane, we'll go to Mike.
I'm going to try to do this because I had planned I'm not on my computer because for whatever reason, it completely froze up. So let me see what I can do here. Let me see if I can, I'm going to share screen. If you could allow me to share, please.
Okay, see if you can share it.
Some reason. Yeah, that's right, because I'm not on my thing. So
Okay, try now.
Let Elaine share.
yeah, there we go. Okay, does that show up all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to show things in kind of chronological order. I thought I'd pick a few pieces from each of the early times. And this is a lamp, a Cambridge stand lamp, the number 2581. And this is from in the middle 19. So it shows up in the 1916 catalog on a lamp page, and then also in the 21 catalog, and it's engraved 882. So they did some flower work there up on the top part, and then they did kind of some notching down each of the edges. So fairly simple, simple cutting, but still just kind of playing around, adding a little extra things. You know, of course, Herschel Hancock started in 1919, 1918. So this might have been some early things where he was working to figure out what they were doing. So. Wanted to show a Rubina piece. If you notice, this is the half-pound candy jar, so it's the number 95. But when they did the honeycomb optic on a piece, they would put it as part of the 500 line, so it's the 500/95. Most of the time, there's very few cuttings that were done on Rabina, or very few pieces of Rabina cut. And of course, Rabina wasn't around for very long, so they didn't have really a lot of time to do things. But if you do find a piece, it probably is the candy jar. I have a vase and another piece as well that were cut, but I've seen about a half a dozen of the candy jars cut, all with that 4061 cutting on it. So. Here's a piece from the getting into the mid-20s. This is the 945 honey jar and cover, peach blow, and this is an unidentified gray cutting. You know, we talked about this earlier throughout, that there are a lot of cuttings there are unidentified, so it's hard to know whether Cambridge did them or not. Some of them are maybe a little easier to say they were Cambridge because they kind of look like elements that Cambridge did on identified ones, but just a lot of them we will probably never know unless maybe Herschel Hancock's relatives all of a sudden come out with a big catalog of notes and everything, which would be sweet if that ever happened. But so far we don't know. But they're still beautiful. Here's one that is unidentified, but we do know it's Cambridge through images, etc. Dave Rankin and Larry Everett and Miami Valley had a number of cuttings that were identified as Cambridge, but we did not have a number or a name for them. So they assigned just random numbers, and this one is unidentified number 7, but it is a Cambridge cutting. And I have quite a collection of this. These are some of the stemwares, the tall sherbet on the left, the goblet in the middle, and then the 10-ounce footed tumbler on the right. But they also did a lot of accompanying pieces too as well. Here's one that's the 3400 line, the 10-inch Baker, which I think that's kind of a weird name for this piece, but we actually have this piece etched Delane too, and I'm not sure why they call it a Baker, other than it might have held baked things. I don't know, but it's not something you'd certainly put in the oven or whatever. But it is a beautiful design, and so it's one that can be found. So it was almost always done on willow blue. I don't think I've seen it on another color. So. Another thing that's right there towards the end of the 1920s into the early 1930s, but this was a really beautiful cutting, 534. It's a combination of different things, of polished, of gray cut, of I don't know how they did the leaf there on the right, but the background of it, it's just so it's kind of really an interesting effect that they occurred. And this was a really cool cutting, I think, on the creamer and sugar. So we get into the 30s. I wanted to show this bowl because I've always been fascinated by this. It's a 3500 bowl, and it is the came from the mold that they had made 2 other bowls with. But this bowl was not a production thing that we've ever been able to identify. The color is moonlight, and it does have a gray cutting. And one other one supposedly has been seen in forest green, but that's it. So we don't know what this is. They were probably just kind of testing to see if maybe marketing wanted to, put this in full production or not, which it never was. So, but it's just kind of an interesting piece to have. So, here is the statuesque candlesticks, and this cutting is 560, which is different than what was done on the nude stem drinking vessels. This is the only pair of nude cut candlesticks I'm aware of, but this cutting was one that they did on some really early fancy candlesticks in the 1930 catalog. They really did some fantastic stuff with this cutting. So, but on the nude candlesticks, all they did was they cut the base. So they didn't cut anything else. So not her legs, didn't notch her legs or anything like that. So, yeah. Well, of course, have to show a Lucia piece. We've seen some neat ones tonight that other people have showed. And of course, since that was one of Elaine's dad's primary cuttings, this is the Dalton jug, and it's nice that what they did here. I don't know if anybody is attuned to Lucia or not, but if you are and you look at this picture, you might notice something, and that is something is missing. Below the flower in the middle, there is kind of a triangular stem that would normally come down, and it is not there. So I've always, most of the time they're pretty consistent with the cuttings and et cetera on from one piece to the next. But every so often, depending on what all they can fit, they might leave another little element out or this or that. But this is a big piece, so there's no reason why they shouldn't have been able to get everything on there. But for some reason, they forgot to put the stem on the flower. So. This is a cool stem and a cool cutting, I think. The cutting is Cranston, and it's on the 3139 goblet. You've probably seen a lot of cuttings tonight that Cambridge did that have that cross hatching in there. There are a lot of different designs like Windsor and King Edward and Manor and a lot of things so that was a fairly common element that people must have liked. It must have marketed well because you see that on a lot of the popular cuttings. Here's another one just that also has that kind of cross-hatch. This is Belfast. This is also the 10-ounce goblet. And this is a 3132, and I just like this goblet. The 3134 stemware line also uses this stem, has a little different bowl on it. And I like that stem. Mike does not like this stem. It's not his favorite, but I like this. So that's good. When he has extras, he can float those my way. Here we're getting into the late 30s and the 40s now, the King Edward. And this was done actually for Sheffield Sterling. It was actually their private mold. And they did a little squat jug and a cut it King Edward. So it's kind of a little different, a little interesting piece there. A lot of the King Edward you will see with sterling silver bases. That was not an uncommon thing. They did quite a bit of it. So, this is kind of a neat thing, the candelabras with the 16-inch hurricanes on the dolphin seashell base. So they did not cut the candle or the Beaubouchets on this. I would have thought that they would have, but they did not. But still, the hurricanes are cut manner, which is pretty neat. And we'll get into this when we have our program in November when we talk about Beaubouchets and all that. But you notice that these Beaubouchets have been highly decorated and highly cut. And towards the end, we have, of course, the pristine, the calla lily candlesticks. There's only 3 known cuttings that I'm aware of, and this is one of them, thistle, which was pretty cool that they did. They put the little thistles up on the front face there on each side, but then if you look towards the middle in the back inside, they also put another one in there, which was kind of a neat little effect too as well. So, this is a very rare cutting, Jefferson. Not really known on stemware. There was a single catalog image that was shown on a hurricane lamp. This is in the 50s. It's a gorgeous cutting, but extremely rare. It's the only one that I've ever seen. And another one that we're getting in from the 50s, this is Buttercup. It's kind of a weird stem. I've never understood this Cambridge stem. I guess it just must have been for the time. It's kind of a strange looking one, but $37.99. And the cutting is Buttercup. I'm not sure why. It looks more like a celestial with all the stars and the things like that, but why it's called Buttercup, who knows? And the last one I have is the 7801 cocktail. And this is rooster, obviously, with a rooster on it. But as far as we know, this never went into full production. My guess is that they came up with this right before the factory closed. It does have a factory label on it saying it's the 7801 cocktail with rooster on it. But it probably came out right before the factory closed, and then they never brought it out into production because it's not ever seen. In fact, I could have, if I'd have shown this, it has two other completely different images cut on the other parts of the bowl, which don't show up on this. So one guy's kind of like drinking at a bar, and I forgot what the third one is. They don't look anything like a rooster, so I have no idea what was going on there. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jack. So beautiful pieces there. Obviously, great to see it go through the decades, how we see changes, changes in what was popular in the 30s. Maybe that pattern wasn't as popular in the 50s. So thank you for that, bringing us through the decades there. So that was perfect. And such really unique pieces too. Obviously, looking at the Rubina, seeing a cutting on the Rubina, just pieces we don't see every single day or think about having cuttings on. So thank you so much for sharing those. And so before we go back to Jane, we're going to go to Mike, and then we'll have Jane show us her piece. So Mike, take it away.
First thing, this is for Mary. Mary, this is the book you want to find. That's how it's set up. It's got the pictures. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. I got two extremes on Cambridge cuttings to close out with. The first is a candy dish that I think Herschel Hancock cut two of these. And they just cut the snot out of this thing.
You got that for me, right?
Yeah, well, you didn't pick it up, April, so I kept it. So, and then the second one is one of my favorite pieces and a very simple piece. And it's so simple. I just love this piece. So those are the two extremes that I brought.
Those are so cool, Mike. So yeah, that first one is really, I don't think it took an hour to do that one, probably longer.
This one, Joel?
Yeah, that one. I don't think that was an hour. That was probably a lot longer.
It
It's a
has
beautiful piece.
It has some sort of provenance that Lynn told me once, but he just said there were two of them cut for some special occasion. I don't know. I should write this down because I don't have memory for it.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing. That was so special, Mike. And again, thank you so much for your efforts in putting together the presentation. So that was wonderful. So Jane, we're back to you. Have you found your vase?
Yes, I have. And I have to say, this is so interesting to listen. These are pieces swooning is not even it. When you have the nudes, I lose my mind. This piece, you said to tilt it. I don't know. Can you see it?
Yes, when you tilt it and hold it back a little bit so we can get the full view. That's very good there.
Okay.
Yes. And maybe just slightly turn it so we can see we see the bird.
Better or worse?
Oh no, I think it's better when you tilt it long ways. Yes, right like that.
Okay.
And then just maybe rotate it a little bit.
Oh,
the base is cut and the top is cut as well. I was just amazed when I found it. I have no idea who made it. But they certainly were very artistic.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hold it back a little closer to you, Jane, just to give us, okay.
All right, I can't. Really.
The top is not
Well, it's not Cambridge glass, but I'm not sure who made that, but it looks extremely high quality. I don't even want to venture a guess. When you don't know, you just say it's European or something like that.
Well, for $1, I was not going to pass it up.
For $1.
Yes, beautiful piece, beautiful, beautiful.
I have pieces that I forget about because they're not in the case of goblets. And now that I've watched and listened, I will investigate further. This is a terrific program for not, you know, I collect extremely expensive things, but this is a totally different world. So I'm very thankful to be able to come here.
Yes, well, we're glad that you're joining us as well. So thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your vase. It's beautiful, obviously, with all the cutting and the birds. Very, very beautiful. As
Thank you.
David said, it looks like a very high quality piece of glass.
Well, I think I like it very much.
Yes. Did we miss anyone tonight? Does anyone else have any glass that they'd like to show? Hearing none, I'm going to return it back to David. And again, thank you so much, everyone that participated this evening, and also for Jack and for Mike and everyone that's been so knowledgeable tonight and been able to share their knowledge with everyone here. So David, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Julie. Zoom and Tell has two components. It's got an educational part to it. So Mike, thank you for sharing that information. It's cuttings often get overlooked, but I think there was a lot of skill in the cutting department, and trying to do a cutting over and over again with minimal markings and minimal pattern to go from is absolutely amazing. The skill that those people had. Those were the true artists at the Cambridge Glass Company. And then there's the other component is the social and the sharing. So for everyone who shared glass tonight, it's always fun to see what other people have found in different parts of the country over the years. So thank you for everyone who shared with us this evening. Next month, September, on September 9th at 8 p.m., Les Hansen is going to lead the Zoom and Tell program on the keyhole design. And if you didn't join us early this evening, Les pointed out that even some of the stoppers for the small oil bottles, and of course, don't forget the perfumes, all the perfume, the long dripper perfumes in the 3400 ball perfumes have that keyhole stopper, keyhole design on the end of the dauber. So the keyhole shows up more than just on candlesticks and vases. So check out your cabinets and be willing and prepared to share a few items that you find interesting from your collections that have the keyhole design next month. Again, that's September 9th at 8 p.m. So, Julie, that's all I've got this evening.
All right. Well, thank you, David. And again, thank you, everyone, as always, for sharing your glass. It's so nice that we can see these beautiful pieces. Sometimes, you know, even when we have convention and show and tell, these are pieces that we don't want broken. And obviously, it's wonderful when we can also see these sentimental pieces that have been passed along through families, such as Elaine, hearing the stories from her dad, who was a cutter, and also Amarla and her father, who was a cutter. So we can really see how this community brings us all together and how special it is when we can share. So thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you in September.